"I know how to make him stop," the kid from the neighborhood said, but the millionaire didn't believe him until the boy started to act. The noise was unbearable. Alexander Williams squeezed his eyes shut, feeling every nerve ending in his body vibrate with Gabriel's piercing cries. 3 hours. 3 damn hours since the American Airlines flight had taken off from JFK, bound for LAX in Los Angeles, and his 6-month-old son hadn't stopped crying for a single second. The baby's face was beet red, his tiny body twisted in spasms of pain. Alex had tried everything: bottle, pacifier, lullabies he barely knew, gentle rocking, vigorous rocking. Nothing worked, and all around him, 42 first-class passengers stared at him with a mixture of pity and poorly disguised irritation. "Can't you control that kid?" a man in a grey suit grumbled, slamming his laptop shut with excessive force. Alex felt a hot flush creep up his neck. He who commanded boardrooms with hundreds of executives, who had built a tech empire valued in the billions, was here, helpless before the suffering of his own son. "I'm sorry," he muttered, his voice hoarse with exhaustion. "I've never done this before. Mr. Williams?" The flight attendant appeared at his side, her professional smile not quite reaching her tired eyes. "The captain has asked. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable in the seats at the back. Other passengers are complaining." The humiliation burned like acid. Alexander Williams, cover star of Forbes, being sent to economy class as if he were a nuisance. But when he looked at Gabriel, he only saw a baby in pain, and his anger evaporated. "All right," he said, grabbing the diaper bag and the baby. "Come on, son, let's go." The walk down the aisle was an ordeal. Every stare, every whisper, every impatient sigh. Alex kept his head down, Gabriel wailing against his chest, and settled into the last available seat by the window in the second-to-last row. The crying continued, relentless, desperate. Alex closed his eyes, feeling tears of frustration threatening to spill over. Sarah would have known what to do. Sarah always knew. But she was back in New York, planning Gabriel's birthday party, trusting that her husband could handle a simple trip to LA to close a major deal. "Excuse me." The voice was young, hesitant. Alex opened his eyes and saw a slim, brown-skinned boy, no more than 14 or 15, wearing a faded T-shirt from the Institute for Mathematical Sciences. His worn-out backpack had academic medals sewn onto it with thick thread. "Sorry to bother you, sir," the boy said, his dark eyes shining with what looked like genuine concern. "But can I try to help with the baby?" Alex blinked, confused. "How?" "My name is Javier." "Javier Garcia." The boy held out his hand with a formality that was almost comical for someone so young. "I practically raised my little sister. She had terrible colic as a baby. That cry, I recognize it a mile away." Across the aisle, a woman with grey hair huffed. "Oh no, now they're going to let some street kid hold the baby." Javier stiffened, but didn't look away from Alex. And Alex, on the verge of exhaustion and despair, saw something in that boy's eyes. Something he recognized because he had felt it himself, decades ago, the weight of carrying responsibilities too heavy for shoulders too small. "Please," he heard himself say, "please, try." The smile that lit up Javier's face was like the sun breaking through dark clouds. The boy carefully sat down next to Alex, extending his arms. "May I?" Alex passed Gabriel to him, and for the first time in hours, he felt the muscles in his arms relax. Javier held the baby with surprising confidence, placing him face down along his forearm, with Gabriel's head resting in the palm of his hand. With his other hand, he began to make gentle, circular motions on his swollen tummy. "The colic gets worse with the cabin pressure," Javier explained, his voice low and soothing, directed at both the baby and Alex. "My sister Lucia had attacks every time we went up to the mountains. I learned that this position helps. The pressure on the abdomen relieves the trapped gas." The seconds stretched into an eternity. Alex held his breath, and then, like a miracle, the crying began to subside, from a piercing shriek to a whimper, from a whimper to sobs, from sobs to silence. Gabriel sobbed one last time and closed his little eyes, his body finally relaxing. A tiny sigh escaped his pink lips, and he fell asleep, truly asleep. The silence on the plane was deafening. Alex's eyes were wide, unable to process what he had just witnessed. How did you?" Javier smiled, continuing the gentle circular motions. "Practice. A lot of training with Lucia. She had colic until she was 7 months old. My mom worked 3 jobs, so I was the one with her most of the time." "3 jobs?" "Yeah. A cleaner, Javier said it without shame, his head held high. She supports me and my sister and pays the rent for our apartment in the Bronx. She works 14 hours a day so we have food on the table. Alex felt something tighten in his chest. The Bronx, a working-class borough. He knew it well, not personally, but he knew it. He knew it because he had grown up in a place just like it, on the other side of the city 30 years ago. You live in the Bronx and you're going to LA. I'm representing New York in the national finals of the United States of America Mathematical Olympiad, Javier replied, a quiet pride in his young voice. I won the state competition. The government pays for the trip and accommodation for the finalists. From there, if I win, I go to the International Olympiad. Alex was silent, taking in the information. Her kid from the neighborhood, traveling alone, to represent his entire community in the country's biggest math competition, and here he was, saving a billionaire's son on a plane. How old are you? 14. I turn 15 next month. 14 years old, and already carrying the world on his shoulders. Javier, Alex said slowly, his mind already racing. How many days are you staying in LA? 3. The competition is the day after tomorrow. I have to be back in New York on Sunday night. My sister has a school play on Monday, and I promised her I'd be there. Alex looked at Gabriel, sleeping peacefully in the arms of a stranger who had cared enough to help when no one else would. He looked at the medals sewn onto the worn-out backpack. He looked at the bright eyes of this boy who, he was absolutely sure, held a brilliant future within him, and he made a decision that would change their lives forever. What if I pay you to help me with Gabriel for these 3 days? You can see LA properly, study when you need to, and I clearly need the help. Alex smiled, and it was genuine. Besides, I'm curious to learn more about this math champion who just saved my sanity. Javier blinked, surprised. Sir, are you serious? Completely. What do you think is fair? The boy blushed. I don't know. I've never done something like this. $100 a day. 300 total. You stay with me and Gabriel, help me when he gets like this, and I'll show you the City of Angels, like it deserves to be seen. Deal? Javier's eyes widened. $300. Probably more than his mother made in 2 weeks of work. Deal, sir, thank you, really, thank you. Alex held out his hand, and as they shook, he felt the beginning of something he couldn't yet name. A connection, a purpose, a future unfolding. Outside, through the oval window, the clouds began to part, revealing the Pacific Ocean glistening under the afternoon sun. The Hollywood sign stood on the horizon, as if blessing this improbable meeting. And Alexander Williams, who thought he had everything in life, was about to discover he was still missing something fundamental, something he would find in the determined eyes of a 14-year-old boy from the Bronx who soothed crying babies and dreamed of international math Olympiads. The aroma of freshly made pancakes and hot chocolate invaded Javier's senses as they walked through the grand entrance of the Polo Lounge. The boy stopped at the threshold, his mouth agape, his eyes scanning the plush booths, the original artwork on the walls, the marble tables where elegant Angelinos were having breakfast as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I've never been in a place like this, he whispered, almost afraid his voice might break something precious. Alex, with Gabriel sleeping soundly in his stroller, smiled. Then today is a day of firsts. Come on, I got us a table in the back. They sat near one of the large windows. Javier couldn't stop looking around, absorbing every detail of this piece of Hollywood history. On the menu, the prices made him swallow hard. Order whatever you want, Alex said, noticing his hesitation. And I mean that literally. Pancakes, waffles, pastries, everything. You're going to need energy to study. You don't have to. Javier, Alex leaned forward, his eyes serious. Yesterday on the plane, you saved me from a nervous breakdown. Let me buy you a decent breakfast, okay? The boy nodded, still uncomfortable, but ordered a stack of chocolate chip pancakes. When the order arrived, the first bite was almost a religious experience. Good? Alex asked, hiding a smile. It's like every ingredient is happier than the last, Javier replied seriously, and Alex let out a genuine laugh. For a few minutes, they ate in comfortable silence. Gabriel woke up briefly, accepted the bottle Alex had prepared, and went back to sleep. Javier watched the interaction with an attentive gaze. You're good at it, he commented. Alex grimaced. It didn't seem like it yesterday. All parents have bad days. My mom says she cried with me for 3 straight months when I was born. She thought she was going to die of exhaustion. Javier took a sip of his hot chocolate, but she never gave up. Never? And your father? The boy's face darkened for a fraction of a second. I never knew him. He left when my mom was pregnant with me. He showed up once when Lucia was born, said she wasn't his daughter, and disappeared again. My mom almost gave up on everything back then. Postpartum depression. Really bad. Were you the one who took care of Lucia? I was 12. I learned fast. There was no self-pity in Javier's voice, just a statement of fact. Our neighbor helped for a few hours, but I was the one who fed her, changed her diapers, and calmed her down when she cried. That's why I recognized Gabriel's colic yesterday. Lucia had it until she was 7 months old. I learned all the tricks. Alex was silent, digesting this. At 12, he himself was still playing in the streets of his neighborhood, with no major responsibilities beyond going to school. This boy in front of him had practically raised a sister on his own. "And how do you find time to study math in the middle of all that?" he asked. Javier's eyes lit up. "Math isn't studying for me. It's like breathing. It's the only thing that's ever made sense, you know? Numbers don't lie. Numbers don't judge you for where you live or how much money you have. Numbers are fair, always. Where do you learn? Do you have a computer at home?" Javier shook his head. "Nothing like that. I use the public library in the Bronx. I stay there from 4 in the afternoon until they close at 8. I check out the most advanced books they have, and when there are no new ones, I invent my own methods. I created a different way to solve Diophantine equations that even the Olympiad coach found strange. But it works, it always works." Alex leaned back in his chair, studying the boy before him. There was something there, something rare. It wasn't just intelligence. He knew dozens of intelligent people. It was something deeper, a determination forged by necessity, a genius tempered by reality, and above all a genuine kindness that made Javier help a stranger on a plane without expecting anything in return. "Can I tell you something?" Alex said suddenly. "Sure. I grew up in a working-class neighborhood too, East New York and Brooklyn. My father left when I was 6. My mother cleaned offices at night to keep me in school." Javier looked at him, surprised. "Really? Really? I know it doesn't look like it now, but I know what it's like to come home and have no food. I know what it's like to wear patched-up clothes and get made fun of at school. I know what it's like to study at the library because you don't have internet at home." Alex paused. "And I know what it's like to have a talent, something you're good at, and have no one believe it can take you anywhere. But you got somewhere," Javier said quietly. "I saw your name in the Wall Street Journal at the airport newsstand. Alexander Williams, CEO of Technovision, one of the biggest tech companies in the country." Alex nodded. "I got there, but not alone. I was lucky. A teacher saw something in me and gave me a full scholarship to a prep program. An entrepreneur invested in my first startup when I was 22 and didn't inspire any confidence. A series of people gave me opportunities that on paper I didn't deserve, but that I made sure to prove I deserved in practice. And why are you telling me this?" "Because Javier," Alex leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the boys. "Because when I saw you yesterday, helping my son without asking for anything in return, when I heard you talk about your mother with such respect and your sister with such love, when I found out you're a math champion traveling alone to compete for New York, I saw who I was 30 years ago, and I saw who I want my son to be in 15 years. Javier blushed. "Sir, let me finish." Alex took a deep breath. "These 3 days in LA, I want you to see them not just as a temp job. I want you to see them as the beginning of something bigger. I don't know exactly what yet, but I know you have a brilliant future ahead of you, and if you'll let me, I'd like to help you pave that road, not out of charity, but because investing in people like you is the best investment someone like me can make." The silence between them was thick with possibility. Javier swallowed hard, his eyes shining with unshed tears. No one has ever talked to me like that before." "Well, it's about time someone did." Alex smiled. "Now finish that hot chocolate before it gets cold, and after, if you don't mind, I'd like to hear about those math methods you've invented. Who knows, maybe I'll learn something." And there, in the polo lounge, under vaulted ceilings, and amidst the aromas of chocolate and pancakes, 2 worlds met. The entrepreneur who had fought his way out of his neighborhood, and the boy who was still in the fight. The man who wanted to give back the opportunities he had received, and the kid who just needed one chance. Gabriel slept peacefully in his stroller, unaware that his untimely colic on a plane had just planted the seeds of a transformation that would resonate far beyond that historic cafe. Outside, Los Angeles was waking up under the California sun, and 3 days of infinite possibilities stretched out before them. The tram climbed slowly up to the Griffith Observatory, cutting through the dense chaparral that covered the hill like a green blanket. Javier had his face pressed against the window, his wide eyes trying to absorb every detail of the landscape unfolding below. The city stretching as far as the eye could see, the ocean glittering like a shattered mirror under the afternoon sun, the buildings piling up on one another in an organized chaos of concrete and nature. "I've never seen New York from this high up," he murmured, more to himself than to Alex. "It's different from up here," Alex agreed, settling Gabriel on his lap. The baby was awake, watching the trees rush past the window with fascination. LA was made to be seen from above. New York is lived from within. When they reached the top, Javier stepped off the tram in a reverent silence. And there it was, the Griffith Observatory, with its iconic domes, a timeless monument watching over the city. The building was even more imposing up close, every detail of the Art Deco facade crafted with precision, the sunlight glinting off the copper. Tourists were snapping photos everywhere, tour groups huddled around listening to guides, street vendors offered water and souvenirs. But Javier stood still, just looking up, and Alex saw something on the boy's face that made him keep his distance, respecting the moment. "My grandmother used to say that the stars watch over those who have no one," Javier finally said, his voice low. "She died when I was 8, but I still remember. She'd come up from Florida to New York once a year, always brought oranges from her town, and she always talked about the big city lights. She said one day she'd take me to see the ocean." The boy wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I guess she's seeing it now." Alex felt a lump in his throat. "I'm sure she is, and she's proud." They stood there for a few more minutes, simply existing in that sacred space between the sky and the earth. Gabriel pointed at a dome and babbled something incomprehensible, drawing a smile from Javier. "He likes this," the boy said, gently tickling the baby's tummy. "He likes you," Alex corrected. "He cried for 3 hours with me, and with you. He's as calm as if you were his father." Javier laughed, embarrassed. "I'm good with babies. Lucia trained me well." Alex seized the opportunity. "Javier, can I ask you a serious question?" "Sure. What do you want to do with your life? I mean, after high school, college, career, dreams." The boy bit his lip, thoughtful, looking out at the city below. "I want to study pure mathematics, research, at Columbia, if I can get in. And I want my mum to stop working 3 jobs. I want Lucia to be able to go to a good school, have decent supplies, not go through what I went through. He hesitated. "I want to prove that a kid from the Bronx can make it anywhere. So my father, wherever he is, knows he was wrong, and so all the kids in my neighborhood know it's possible." "And you'll do it," Alex said, with a conviction that surprised even himself. Javier looked at him. "How can you be so sure?" "Because I know fire when I see it, and you, Javier Garcia, are burning." Alex stepped closer. "That's why I want to make you a proposal, and I want you to think about it carefully before you answer." "What proposal?" "I'll fund your education. A private school, a tutor, books, supplies, everything you need to develop the talent God has given you. And no," he raised a hand before Javier could protest, "it's not charity. It's an investment. Because I believe in you, and because people like us have to help each other. I was helped when I needed it. Now it's my turn to pay it forward." Javier turned pale. "Sir, I can't accept that." "Why not?" Because it's a lot. Too much. I barely know you, and you know me enough to know I'm not doing it out of pity." Alex placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm doing it because I recognize potential, because I know you have the chance to do something extraordinary with your life, and because, selfishly, I want my son to know you. I want him to grow up around someone who has beaten the odds, who has fought when it was easier to give up, who has enough character to help a stranger on a plane without expecting anything in return." Tears streamed down Javier's face, silent and plentiful. "My mom always told me never to accept favors from strangers. Then give me a chance not to be a stranger. Give me a chance to be, I don't know, an uncle, a godfather, a mentor." Alex smiled. "Give me the chance to make a difference in the life of someone who deserves every opportunity the world can offer." Javier looked at the iconic domes, their arms seemingly open over the city. He looked at Gabriel, who was watching him with his curious baby eyes. He looked at Alex, and he saw in the entrepreneur's eyes the same determination he saw in the mirror every morning when he promised himself he would be different, that he would get somewhere, that he would prove he was worth it. "Okay," he whispered, "okay. But I'll pay you back. I don't know how yet, but I will. I promise." "You're already paying me back," Alex said, squeezing the boy's shoulder. "Just by existing, just by being who you are. Just by reminding people like me where we come from and why we fight. They stood there, under the impressive observatory, as the sun began to set on the horizon, painting the ocean in shades of gold and red. Tourists took selfies, vendors closed their stalls. Birds pecked at leftover food on the stone ground. But for Alex and Javier, the world shrank to that moment, to that silent promise, to that pact made under the blessing of a monument that embraced an entire city. Gabriel yawned, pressing his face against Alex's chest, and somehow that seemed to seal the deal. "You compete tomorrow," Alex said, breaking the silence, "and I'll be there, in the front row, cheering louder than any coach. Tonight, study as much as you want. I have an apartment in Santa Monica. You have an office to yourself for as long as you need it. And after the competition, we start building your future, step by step, together." Javier wiped his eyes and smiled. It was a small smile still, shy from someone not used to receiving kindness without strings attached, but it was genuine. "Okay, let's do it." And they went down the hill as night fell over Los Angeles, taking with them more than just the view from the observatory. They carried possibilities, they carried hope, they carried the delicious weight of a future that didn't exist yet, but that both could already feel taking shape. In the right hands, in the right hearts, at the right moments, promises become more than words. They become destiny. The Los Angeles Convention Center was packed. Students from every state in the country, wearing T-shirts from their respective regions, milled nervously through the hallways. Teachers whispered last-minute strategies. Parents snapped photos endlessly, immortalizing every second of a day that could change their children's trajectories. Javier sat in a white plastic chair, his hands sweating, the math exam resting on his knees. Beside him, Alex held Gabriel, who for the first time seemed to sense the tension in the air and sat still, his large eyes observing everything with curiosity. "Breathe," Alex said in a low voice. "It's just an exam." "It's the national final of the United States of America Mathematical Olympiad," Javier corrected, his voice tight. "If I don't make it here, I don't go to the international one. And if I don't go to the international one," he didn't finish the sentence, "and if you don't go, you will have tried. And that's already more than 99% of people do in their lifetime." Alex leaned forward. "But Javier, you're going to make it. I know it. I don't know how I know it, but I know it." Javier's name was called over the loudspeaker. It was time. The boy stood up, his legs trembling. He looked at Alex, then at Gabriel. The baby held out his little arms, and Javier briefly took his tiny hand. "Wish me luck, little man," he murmured. And then, squaring his shoulders, he walked into the exam room. The next 3 hours were the longest of Alex's life. He walked with Gabriel through the outdoor gardens of the convention center, trying to distract himself and the baby. He bought water, though he wasn't thirsty. He checked his phone 15 times, not knowing exactly what he expected to see. When the candidates finally began to emerge, Alex rushed to the entrance, Gabriel clinging to his chest. He saw dozens of faces, some smiling, many crying, all exhausted. And then he saw Javier. The boy was walking out slowly, his face an unreadable mask. Alex felt his stomach clench, but when Javier saw him, something changed. The boy stopped. He blinked, and a smile began to form, small at first, then growing wider and wider, until he was running, really running, and Alex realized there were tears streaming down Javier's face. "I did it," the boy panted, laughing and crying at the same time. "Alex, I did it. The last question, the one on number theory, I used the method I invented in the library, the one I told you about, and it worked. I know it worked. Alex hugged him, with Gabriel squished between them, and the three of them stood there, a tangle of relief and joy in the middle of the crowded lobby. "I knew it," Alex said, his voice thick with emotion. "I knew you would." The official results were announced 3 hours later, in a formal ceremony in the main auditorium. Javier Garcia, representing the state of New York, placed first in the national competition, gold medal, and most importantly, qualified to represent the United States in the International Mathematical Olympiad. When his name was called, Javier walked up to the stage on trembling legs. He received the medal from a Secretary of Education he had never imagined meeting in person. Camera flashes exploded. Applause echoed through the auditorium. And there, in the front row, Alexander Williams stood, applauding so hard his hands hurt, with Gabriel in his arms, clapping along without understanding why, but excited all the same. When Javier came down from the stage, he went straight to Alex. He didn't say anything. He just hugged him again, tighter this time, and Alex realized the boy was shaking. "Hey," Alex said, pulling Javier back to look him in the eye. "It's okay. You did it. You're the national champion. It's just—" Javier wiped his nose with the back of his hand. "I just wish my mom could have seen it." Alex smiled. "Well, let's call her right now. Better yet, let's FaceTime her. She needs to see your face when you give her this news." They went out to the garden where the connection was better. Alex held Gabriel, leaving the phone to Javier. The boy dialed with trembling fingers. "Hello? Mom?" Ana Garcia's voice came through the phone, tired but immediately alert. "Javi, is everything okay? How did it go?" "Mom, Javier took a deep breath. "I won. I won the nationals, Mom. First place. I'm going to represent the USA in the international competition." The shriek that came from the other end of the line made Gabriel jump. Alex heard Ana call for Lucia, heard sobs of joy, heard prayers whispered aloud. And he heard above all the pure crystalline pride of a mother who had worked 3 jobs so her son could study, seeing her sacrifice validated in the most beautiful way possible. "I love you, Mom," Javier said, crying openly now. "I did it for you, and for Lucia, and for Grandma wherever she is." When he hung up, Javier stood still, the medal heavy on his chest, the phone in his hand, his eyes lost on the Los Angeles horizon. Alex came closer. "I'm proud of you. You barely even know me." "I know you enough." Alex paused. "Javier, I want you to consider this. When we get back to New York, I want to introduce you and your mother to my family. I want us to talk properly, all together, about the next step. Because this," he pointed to the medal, "this is just the beginning. You have 18 months until the International Olympiad, and I want to make sure those 18 months are the best of your life, that you have structure, support, everything you need to go there and bring another medal home for the USA. Alex, you've already done too much. You can't." "I can, and I will, because you're not just an investment, Javier. You've become family." The boy looked at him, his eyes still wet. "Family? Family." Alex smiled and looked at Gabriel. "He already adores you. My wife, Sarah, will adore you when she meets you. And you're the big brother I always wanted my son to have. Someone to teach by example, to show that character and effort matter more than money or a last name. So yeah, family." Javier said nothing. He just nodded, the emotion too big for words. That night, they celebrated with pizza at the hotel. Javier ate 4 slices, Alex 3, and Gabriel was fascinated by the melted cheese. They laughed, told stories, planned the next steps. And when Javier finally fell asleep, exhausted but happy, Alex stayed awake in the armchair of the hotel room, with Gabriel sleeping on his chest, and thought about how strange life was. 5 days ago, he was on a plane, desperate, humiliated, helpless. Today he was in Los Angeles watching a 14-year-old boy he barely knew become the national math champion. And somehow, that boy already occupied a space in Alex's heart that he hadn't even known was empty. "Family," he murmured into the darkness of the room. "You've become family." And Gabriel, asleep, squeezed his hand as if in agreement. The taxi stopped at the entrance to the Bronx neighborhood, and Alex looked out the window, taking in the scene. Brick apartment blocks piled up the hill, satellite dishes on every roof, tangled electrical wires like spiderwebs, cats and dogs wandering the narrow streets. It was Sunday morning, and the community was alive. Kids playing streetball, women chatting from their windows, the loud sound of hip-hop and pop music blasting from different houses. "Are you sure you want to come in?" Javier asked, self-conscious. I can go get my mom and sister and we can meet you at a restaurant or something." Alex looked at the boy. "Javier, you invited me to see your home. I want to see your home. The real one, the one where you grew up. But with you and Gabriel, I don't know if it's safe. If it's safe for you and your family to live here, it's safe for us to visit." Alex opened the taxi door. "Let's go." They got out, with Gabriel in the baby carrier on Alex's chest, and Javier carrying the backpack with the medal inside. The stares were immediate. A white businessman, in a dress shirt and a watch that cost more than 3 months' rent, walking through the neighborhood, was an unusual enough sight to attract attention. "Is that the rich dude who adopted you?" A boy of about 10 shouted, laughing. Javier blushed. "Shut up, Rafa. He didn't adopt me. He's a friend." "A friend?" The boy laughed. "A friend with a fancy car and a baby that looks like he's from a commercial?" "Come on, Javi." "Rafa," a woman passing by with grocery bags said. "Stop it. Leave the kid alone." She smiled at Alex. You're welcome here. Javier is the pride of the neighborhood. Everyone knows the math whiz kid. Alex returned the smile genuinely. Thank you. They continued up the main street. Kids ran after them, curious. Mister, is it true Javi won an Olympiad? Mister, can I have $1? Hey, Javi, who's the baby? Javier answered patiently, smiling and confirming the stories. Alex observed how loved the boy was there. There was no envy in the neighbor's eyes, only pride. Javier was one of their own who had achieved something great, and that reflected positively on everyone. The Garcia's apartment was in the middle of the street, in a 3-story block with a chipped blue door. Javier pushed the door open. It wasn't locked. Mom, I'm home! The inside was tiny. A living room that doubled as a kitchen, with a worn but clean sofa, a small tube TV, and posters of sports teams on the walls. Math books were stacked on makeshift shelves made of bricks and planks. At the back, 2 doors led to the other 2 rooms. Ana Garcia came out of one of the rooms, wiping her hands on a floral apron. She was a woman in her late 30s who looked 50, her face marked by sleepless nights and hard work. But when she saw Javier, her face lit up with a smile that made her look 20 years younger. My son! She hugged him tightly, kissing his face repeatedly. My champion, I haven't stopped crying since you called yesterday. Lucia, come see, your brother is here. A small 10-year-old girl ran out, her hair in braids. Javi, let me see the medal. Let me see it. Javier took the medal out of his backpack and placed it around his sister's neck. Lucia looked at it with reverence, touching the gold medal as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Is it real? She whispered. It's real, Lucia, and it has your brother's name engraved on the back. Anna finally noticed Alex, standing awkwardly near the door with Gabriel. Her eyes widened. Oh my God, you're the man from the plane? Alex smiled. I am. Alexander Williams, it's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Garcia. The honor is all mine. Javier hasn't stopped talking about you. She looked around, embarrassed by the state of the apartment. Please excuse the mess. If I had known you were coming, I would have tidied up. It's perfect, Alex interrupted sincerely. More than perfect. This home has love. That's more important than any decoration. Anna blinked, surprised, and then her eyes shone with tears. You're very kind. They sat on the cramped sofa. Lucia insisted on sitting on Javier's lap, and Alex noticed the protective way the boy held his sister. There was a connection there that went beyond blood. It was the love of someone who had practically raised another person. Gabriel was fascinated with Lucia. He held out his little hands, babbling, and the girl laughed, delighted. Can I hold him? She asked shyly. Of course, Alex said, carefully passing Gabriel to her. Lucia held the baby with surprising skill for a 10-year-old. He's so handsome. He looks like a little angel. It's Javier who has a way with him, Alex said. Your brother saved my sanity on that plane. And now I want to pay him back. Anna became serious. Javier told me you offered to help him. Mr. Williams, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, but I don't take favors. I work hard. I earn my money. I support my children with dignity. I don't need charity. And I'm not offering charity, Alex replied, respectful but firm. I'm offering an investment. Mrs. Garcia, your son is a genius, a true genius. He has the potential to do things that will change the world. But for that, he needs structure, a good school, tutors, proper materials, time to study without having to worry if there will be food on the table. I feed my children, Anna said, her voice hard. I know you do, and you work 3 jobs to do it. 14 hours a day. Alex leaned forward. But what if I told you there's another way? That you can work less and be more present for your children? That Javier can have all the opportunities he deserves, and that Lucia can grow up seeing that studying is worthwhile? And what do you want in return? The question hung in the air like an undetonated bomb. Alex took a deep breath. I want Javier to continue being who he is. I want him to develop his talent. I want to see him win more medals, get into an incredible university, do a master's, a PhD, who knows? I want my son to grow up seeing Javier as an example. And I want, he hesitated, I want the chance to be the father Javier never had. Not to replace you, never, but to guide, to teach what I know about the business world, to open doors he couldn't open on his own yet. It's selfish too, Mrs. Garcia, because I grew up in a neighborhood like this, and I made it out, but I never forgot where I came from. And now that I have the means, I want to give another talented kid the same chance someone once gave me. The silence in the apartment was absolute. Lucia looked at her mother, then at Javier, confused by the tension. Ana wiped her eyes. Javier, what do you think? The boy looked at his mother. Mom, I trust him. These past few days, he's treated me like a son. He showed me LA. He supported me at the competition. He believed in me when even I didn't. And he grew up in a working-class neighborhood, too. He gets it. Ana stared at Alex for a long moment. Then, slowly, she extended her hand. Then, okay, but with conditions. My son continues to live here. I don't want him to forget where he comes from. I don't want him to become some preppy kid, thinking he's better than others because he has help from a rich businessman. And if I see it's changing him for the worse, I'm cutting it all off, understood? I don't care if you're a billionaire. My son and daughter are the most precious things I have in the world. Alex shook her hand. I wouldn't change any of that, not even if I could. And so it was that on a Sunday morning in the Bronx, in a 3-room apartment that smelled of fresh coffee and toast, an alliance was formed. An alliance that would change not only Javier Garcia's life, but the lives of everyone he would touch from then on. The gates of the Hudson Preparatory Academy stood imposing on the Upper East Side, all gray metal and glass. High-end cars lined up at the entrance, dropping off teenagers with designer backpacks and iPhones. Javier got out of the Uber that Alex had insisted on paying for, adjusted his worn-out backpack on his shoulder, and felt his stomach churn. It's okay, he muttered to himself. It's just a school. You're the national champion. You deserve to be here. But when he walked through the gates and into the central courtyard, the feeling of not belonging hit him like a punch. Groups of students chatted animatedly about their vacations in Miami, about the party at someone's estate, about the new car their dad had just bought. Javier walked, trying to make himself invisible. Hey, are you new? A tall, thin boy appeared beside him. First day here? Yeah, I'm on a scholarship, Javier Garcia. The other boy's face lit up. Seriously? You're the Javier Garcia? The guy who won the national math competition? Javier nodded, surprised. Dude, my name's Bruno Alves. I'm on a scholarship too, track and field, and I'm telling you, you're going to be like a rock star here. Everyone's talking about you. Talking? Of course, man, you won the nationals. You're going to represent the USA abroad. That's awesome. Come on, I'll show you where your class is. Bruno led him through the gleaming hallways, with white walls full of motivational posters and photos of alumni who had gotten into the best universities, chemistry labs, physics labs, biology labs, a 2-story library, a sports complex, a swimming pool. Different from public school, huh? Bruno said, reading his thoughts. It's another world. You get used to it. The secret is not to let them see you're impressed. When they reached the senior year classroom, Bruno pointed to an empty seat in the back. Sit there. It's the best spot. You see everything and nobody bothers you much. Javier sat down, taking out his simple pencil case and the single notebook he would use for all his subjects. Around him, other students had brand-name pencil cases, tablets for taking notes, wireless headphones. Good morning, class. The math teacher, Mrs. Davis, walked in, a woman in her 50s with glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. Before we begin, I have wonderful news. We have a new student today. Javier Garcia, please stand up. Javier stood, wishing the earth would swallow him whole. Javier recently won the gold medal in the United States of America Mathematical Olympiad, national phase, and will represent our country in the international competition. It's an honor to have him with us. Let's give him a warm welcome. The applause was polite, but Javier noticed the stares, some of admiration, others of curiosity, and some filled with skepticism and something that looked like disdain, especially from a blond boy in the corner of the class wearing a polo shirt and a gold chain. He didn't clap. He just stared at Javier with an expression he recognized instantly. Pure classism. The class began. The teacher explained logarithmic functions, something Javier knew by heart. He copied the notes mechanically, trying to concentrate. During the break, Bruno dragged him to the cafeteria. Come on, I'll introduce you to the other scholarship kids. We usually stick together, you know, strength in numbers. But before they reached the cafeteria, the blond boy intercepted them. He had a group behind him, all dressed in designer clothes, all with that air of superiority that comes from never having faced hardship. Javier Garcia, right? The blond boy said, crossing his arms. Philip Torres. My father owns the Torres hotel chain. Pleasure. There was no pleasure in his tone. Hi, Javier said cautiously. So you're the math genius from the hood, huh? The one Alexander Williams decided to, what's the word? Sponsor. The way he said sponsor made it clear he was thinking of another word. Javier felt his blood boil, but he kept his voice calm. He offered me an educational opportunity because I won the national competition. Right. Philip smiled, but there was no humor in it. It's interesting, isn't it, how some people get opportunities, especially when they're young, good-looking, and know how to get close to rich businessmen. The group behind Philip laughed. Bruno stepped forward. Hey man, chill out. What are you implying? Javier interrupted, his voice low but clear. Philip shrugged. Nothing, man. I just find it curious. You get on a plane, calm down, a billionaire's baby, and suddenly you have everything paid for. Full scholarship, new clothes. He glanced at Javier's worn-out sneakers. Well, almost everything new. It's convenient. Philip, the voice came from behind them. A girl with curly brown hair, her uniform immaculate. Shut up. What's up, Sophia? You're being a jerk, as usual. She looked at Javier. Ignore him. His dad buys computers for the school every year so he can pass the subjects he fails. He has no moral ground to talk about meritocracy. Philip turned red. I don't. Sophia laughed. Fourth quarter last year, chemistry. Your dad donated a new lab. You got the minimum passing grade the very next quarter. Coincidence, right? The group behind Philip fell silent. Some looked embarrassed. Javier looked Philip in the eyes. Look, I don't know what you think happened, but I'm going to tell you the truth. I spent 3 years studying 6 hours a day in the public library in the Bronx, alone, because I didn't have money for tutors or prep programs or good books. I created my own math methods because I had no other choice. I competed against 300 students in the state phase. I won. I competed against 2,000 in the nationals. I won again. And now I'm here at this school because I've proven I deserve it, not because I asked for a favor, not because I did anything dirty, because I proved it, with talent, with effort. And if you can't understand that, the problem isn't mine, it's yours. The silence in the hallway was total. Even the groups further away had stopped to watch. Philip opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He said nothing. He just turned and walked away, his group scattering behind him. Bruno let out a low whistle. Dude, that was epic, Sophia smiled. Welcome to Hudson Prep, Javier. Looks like you're going to do just fine here. But when Javier went back to class after the break, his hands were still shaking. He knew this wouldn't be the last time he'd face comments like that. He knew he would carry that suspicion, that look of disdain, for a long time. The question was he strong enough to handle it? He looked out the classroom window, watching the buildings of the Upper East Side stretch into the distance, and then he looked at his hand, where he still had calluses from carrying his mother's groceries on weekends. I deserve to be here, he whispered. I deserve it. And in that moment he believed it. 2 weeks later, the math class was buzzing. The teacher, Mrs. Davis, had just written a differential equation on the board, one that should have been university-level material, far beyond what they were currently studying. This is the type of equation you'll see on the AP exams for engineering, on the toughest tests, she explained, stepping aside so everyone could see. I want you to try to solve it. You don't need to have the answer today. It's just so you can see the level you need to reach. The class groaned collectively. Javier looked at the equation. His eyes scanned the terms, the derivatives, the constants, and something clicked. He knew this, not from school, obviously, but from the Bronx Public Library. 3 months ago, he had checked out a mechanical engineering book that someone had donated. It had a whole section on harmonic vibrations, and it used exactly this type of equation. He raised his hand. Javier, the teacher said. Can I try? There were stifled laughs. Philip, sitting 2 rows ahead, whispered something to the classmate next to him, and they both chuckled. Mrs. Davis looked at him, surprised. You're familiar with this type of equation? I've studied on my own, Javier said, standing up. Can I go to the board? Of course, please. Javier took the marker. The class fell silent. He looked at the equation one more time and began to write. His movements were fast, precise. He separated the variables, applied the Laplace transform, solved the characteristic, isolated the independent term, developed the homogeneous solution, found the particular one, and in 2 minutes and 40 seconds, he had the final answer written on the board, complete with the proof. The silence in the class was absolute. Mrs. Davis walked to the board, her eyes scanning every line of his reasoning. She checked the first step, checked the second. She checked them all. And when she reached the end, she stepped back with an expression of genuine astonishment. It's correct. Completely correct. She looked at Javier. Not just correct. You used a method I've never seen on that third line. Where did you learn that? I invented it. Javier replied simply. It's faster than the traditional method when the equation has that type of forcing term. You invented it. At the library, I was bored, trying to find more efficient ways to solve the exercises. Mrs. Davis blinked. Then she started to laugh, not a laugh of mockery, but of genuine joy. Javier Garcia, you are extraordinary. This, she pointed to the board, this should be in an applied mathematics journal. Are you 14? 15 in 2 weeks. My goodness. She shook her head, still smiling. Class, you are witnessing something rare, very rare, a mathematical genius. For real? The class erupted in murmurs. Some students looked at Javier with admiration, others with envy, some with newfound respect. Javier returned to his seat, his face burning. Bruno patted him on the shoulder. Dude, you're awesome. But it was after class that something unexpected happened. Philip was waiting for him in the hallway. Alone, this time, without his usual crew. Javier stopped, bracing for another confrontation. But Philip didn't have his usual arrogant expression. He looked ashamed. Look, I was a jerk to you on the first day. Javier blinked, surprised. You were? It's just, Philip ran a hand through his hair, clearly uncomfortable. I've never been good at math, or any subject, to be honest. My dad has always paid for everything to make sure I pass. And when you showed up being truly good, earning things through your talent, I don't know, it made me feel like crap. So I attacked you first, so I wouldn't have to admit that I'm the failure. Javier was silent, processing this. I'm not asking you to be my friend, Philip continued, but I wanted to apologize. And, if you have time, maybe you could help me with math. I can pay you, obviously. You don't have to pay, Javier said slowly, but you have to really want to learn. It's no use for me to sit with you if you just want to pass. You have to want to understand it. Philip nodded seriously. I do. I'm tired of just being the hotel owner's son. I want to be good at something on my own. Javier held out his hand. Then we can try. Philip shook it, and there was genuine gratitude in his eyes. That afternoon, as Javier rode the bus home, watching New York pass by the window, he felt something different, something he hadn't felt in a long time, belonging. For the first time since he had set foot in Hudson Prep, he didn't feel like an imposter. He didn't feel like someone who didn't deserve to be there. He had proven his worth, on the board, with mathematics, in the most honest and irrefutable way possible. And by proving it to them, he had proven it to himself. When he got off the bus in the Bronx, Lucia was waiting for him at the street corner, a huge smile on her face. What's up, Javi? How was school? Javier scooped her up in his arms, spinning her around. It was good, Lucia, it was really good. And for the first time in weeks, it was true. 12 months later, Javier was back at JFK Airport. But this time, everything was different. He wasn't traveling alone. Alex was there with Sarah and Gabriel, who was now a year and a half old and running everywhere, needing constant supervision. The U.S. delegation for the International Mathematical Olympiad was gathering near the check-in counter. 6 competitors, 3 coaches, and a growing sense of anxiety. Ready? Alex asked, placing a hand on Javier's shoulder. The boy, now 16, was taller, more built. The last year at Hudson Prep had transformed him, not just physically but in confidence. He no longer looked down when he walked the halls. He greeted teachers and students with the same ease. He had a group of friends who genuinely respected him, and most importantly, he had a whole family supporting him. Nervous, Javier admitted. These are the best from all over the world competing. 112 countries, all with the geniuses each place could produce. And you're our genius, Sarah said, affectionately ruffling his hair. You're going to do great, sweetie. I know it. Javier smiled. Sarah had insisted on calling him sweetie since she met him a year ago. At first, Javier found it strange, but now it warmed his heart. Gabriel tugged on Javier's pants. Brother Javi, take me! Javier picked him up. I can't take you this time, little man, but when I get back, I promise we'll play all day, okay? Okay. Gabriel gave him a high five, sealing the deal. Passengers on flight AA-193 to Tokyo, boarding has now begun, the announcer said. It was time. Anna, who had come with Lucia to say goodbye, hugged Javier tightly. You're going to do so well, son. And don't forget, you don't need to win anything for me to be proud of you. Just being there, representing the USA, is already the biggest victory. I'm going to win, Mum, Javier said, his voice low but firm. For you, for Lucia, for everyone who supports me. Lucia hugged her brother, crying. "You're my hero, Javi. Go and show them what you're made of." And then it was Alex's turn. They hugged and Alex whispered in his ear, "You've already proven everything you had to prove. Now go and have fun. Show the world that the USA isn't just football and Hollywood. We have brilliant minds too." Javier nodded, too emotional to speak. The competition was in Tokyo, Japan. 2 weeks of tests, cultural immersion, and interaction with the greatest young mathematical talents on the planet. The first few days were overwhelming. Javier saw prodigies from countries like China, Russia, South Korea, places with an educational structure he could only dream of, kids who had had access to university professors since they were 10, who studied at specialized institutes, who breathed mathematics since they could talk. And there he was, a kid from the Bronx, who had learned on his own in a public library. But when the exam started, none of that mattered, because mathematics, as Javier had always known, was fair. The numbers didn't care about your nationality, your social class, your background. The numbers were pure truth. He solved the first question in 20 minutes, the second in 35. The third made him sweat, but after 48 minutes, he had the solution. And the fourth was on number theory, exactly his specialty. The question was about finding patterns in sequences of prime numbers that followed a specific rule. Javier smiled. For that, he'd invented a specific method 2 years ago when he was bored in the library. He wrote furiously. He developed the reasoning, proved each step, and in 52 minutes, he had the complete answer. When he left the exam room 3 hours later, he knew he had done well, very well. The results were announced 3 days later in a ceremony at the Imperial Hotel in Tokyo. Javier Garcia, from the United States, had won the gold medal, not just gold. It was the third best overall result among the 672 competitors. When his name was called, Javier walked onto the stage on trembling legs. He received the medal from the president of the International Mathematical Union. Camera flashes exploded. The star-spangled banner played. And there in the front row, Alexander Williams stood, crying openly, applauding with all his might. That night, Javier called home on FaceTime. Anna, Lucia, and the neighbors from the Bronx were all gathered in the cramped living room, celebrating as if the USA had won the World Cup. "You did it!" Lucia screamed, jumping up and down. "My brother is the world champion!" "My son, I'm so proud," Anna cried. "So proud I don't know what to do." And for the first time, Javier allowed himself to fully believe it. He wasn't an imposter. He hadn't been lucky. He was exactly as good as the numbers said he was. And the world was about to find out. Alex's office in the Hudson Yards skyscraper occupied the entire floor, floor-to-ceiling glass, panoramic views of New York City, minimalist but expensive decor. Javier had been there several times, but today felt different, more formal, more important. "Sit down," Alex said, pointing to an Italian leather armchair. Sarah was there too, with Gabriel, now 2.5, playing with building blocks in a corner. "Is everything okay?" Javier asked, suddenly nervous. "Did I do something wrong?" Alex laughed. "On the contrary, you've done everything right. Too right, even." He leaned back in his chair. "Javier, it's been 2 years since we met. 2 years since that hellish flight to LA. "The best flight of my life," Javier said, smiling. "Mine too. And in this time, I've watched you transform. From a shy, insecure boy who didn't believe he deserved to be in good places, to a confident, brilliant young man who has not only won the International Olympiad, but has become the top student at Hudson Prep, class president, tutor to classmates who need help in math, creator of a social project that brings free tutoring to over 200 kids in the Bronx." Javier blushed. "I just did the right thing. You've done more than most people do in their entire lives." Alex leaned forward. "But the real reason I called you here today is different. It has to do with the company." "Technovision?" "That's right. You know that Technovision develops logistics and management software for businesses, right? That's where most of our revenue comes from." "I know," Alex smiled. "Remember that programming project you did last year? Just for fun, you said. An algorithm to optimize delivery routes using machine learning." Javier nodded. He programmed in his spare time, applying mathematics to solve practical problems. It was more of a hobby than anything else. "Well, I showed it to Technovision's development department. Do you know what they said?" "That it doesn't work," Alex laughed. "That it's brilliant, that it would save our clients millions of dollars, and that you at 16 created something that engineers with decades of experience hadn't managed. So we implemented it 3 months ago. Do you know how much we've saved so far, just by testing it with 5 clients?" "How much?" $3,200,000. Javier's eyes widened. Seriously? Seriously? And now there are more than 20 companies that want to implement the system. The estimate is that in the first full year, you'll generate savings of at least 20 million for our clients, which means more clients, more contracts, more revenue. Javier didn't know what to say. He had made that algorithm one Saturday afternoon because he was bored and wanted to apply what he was learning about neural networks. So I want to make you a proposal, Alex continued, opening a drawer and taking out a document. I want to give you 10% of the company. The silence in the office was absolute. Even Gabriel stopped playing, sensing the tension. Sorry? Javier stammered. A stake. Official. 10% of Technovision becomes yours. You become a minority partner, with a voice in strategic decisions and the right to proportional dividends. Alex, I can't accept that. You can, and you will. Alex pushed the document across the desk. This isn't charity, Javier. It's recognition. You created something valuable, something that is generating a concrete result. And besides, in these 2 years, you've become part of this family, part of what I've built. When I look at you, I see the future. I see someone who will take this company to another level when I'm no longer here. And I want to formalize it legally, so it's not a favor, so it's a right. Javier looked at Sarah, who smiled and nodded. He looked at Gabriel, who shouted, "Brother Javi," and ran to hug his leg. He looked at the document with his name printed on it. Javier Garcia, minority partner, 10% of share capital. Tears streamed down his face. I don't know what to say. Say yes, that you'll keep creating great things, that you'll study engineering at the best university you can get into, that you'll do a master's, a PhD, who knows, and that in the future, when you're rich and famous, you'll remember where you started and help other kids like you. Javier wiped his eyes. I promise, all of that, I promise. Alex stood up and hugged Javier. Then welcome to the partnership, kid. You're officially a businessman now. That night, when Javier told his mother and Lucia, Ana cried so much they had to stop 3 times before she could process the information. My son is a partner in a tech company, she repeated incredulously. My son, my Javier. Do you believe this is happening, Mom? Javier asked. Ana hugged him. I believe it, because I always knew you were special. Since you were little, you were born with a light, Javi, a light that can't be hidden. And now the world is finally seeing what I always saw. And Javier realized that this light, this spark his mother saw in him, had never come from mathematical talent or brilliant algorithms. It came from something deeper. It came from character, from effort, from never giving up, even when everything seemed impossible. It came from being exactly who he had always been, a good kid who helped crying babies on planes, who took care of his little sister, who studied late because he believed education could change everything. And now, that light was about to illuminate much more than just his own life. The NYC Tech Summit 2025 was packing the Javits Center as usual. Thousands of geeks, programmers, entrepreneurs, and curious onlookers filled every inch of the exhibition hall. Javier, now 17, was on the main stage, a giant screen behind him displaying the logo of the app he was about to launch, Math for All. Education in America has a problem, Javier began, his voice firm in the microphone, echoing through the crowded space. Kids from low-income families don't have access to the same resources as kids from wealthy families. While some can afford private tutors, expensive prep programs, and up-to-date learning materials, others depend on under-resourced public schools, with overworked teachers and zero structure. The audience listened in attentive silence. I know this because I was one of those kids. I studied in a public library. I taught myself. I created my own methods because I had no other choice. He paused. But what if there was another option? What if every kid from the neighborhood in America could have access to a private math tutor? For free, available 24/7, personalized to each one's level. On the screen, the app's interface appeared. Clean, intuitive, colorful. Math for All uses artificial intelligence to teach math adaptively. The child takes an initial assessment. The system identifies exactly where they're struggling, and then it creates a personalized curriculum with video lessons, interactive exercises, and most importantly, a virtual assistant that explains as many times as necessary with infinite patience until the child understands. He clicked, and a demo played. A virtual child asked a question about fractions. The AI assistant explained it with animations, practical examples using a pizza, More examples using money until the concept was clear. The app is completely free, zero cost. It works even with a slow internet connection. And the best part, every child who uses it is monitored with metrics that show their progress. Teachers can register and track entire classes, identifying exactly where each student needs help. The audience erupted in applause. Javier smiled. This is my way of giving back. All the opportunities I've received, I want to multiply them by 1 million, by 10 million, by as many kids as possible. When he came down from the stage, he was mobbed. Journalists asking for interviews, investors wanting a meeting, educators wanting to collaborate. It was chaotic and wonderful at the same time. Alex, who had watched from a distance with Sarah and Gabriel, came over and hugged Javier tightly. "You did it, kid. You really did it." "Not yet," Javier said. "Now comes the hard part, making it really work, reaching millions." But it worked. Boy, did it work. In 2 weeks, the app had 500,000 downloads. In a month, 2 million. In 3 months, 8 million American children were using Math for All. The stories started pouring in. Kids from rural towns in Appalachia who had never understood division finally getting it. Teenagers from neighborhoods in Chicago getting high grades for the first time in their lives. Teachers sending excited messages about entire classes improving. And Javier read every message, every thank you, every story, because that's why he did it all. Not for the fame, not for the money his stake in Technovision already guaranteed him, but because he remembered the 14-year-old boy who studied until the library closed, desperate for a chance, for someone to believe in him. "Oh, you're changing America," Anna said one night when the whole family, the biological and the chosen one, were having dinner together in the apartment Alex had insisted on giving the Garcias in a nice part of Queens. "I'm trying," Javier replied, one algorithm at a time. Gabriel, now 3, climbed onto Javier's lap. "Brother Javi, when I grow up, I want to be like you." Javier kissed the boy's head. "You'll be better, little man. Much better. Because you already have everything I had to fight for. Structure, family, opportunity. So you'll have no excuse not to be amazing. And you'll be here to teach him," Alex said. "Always." Javier looked around the table. His mother finally relaxed. Without the 3 jobs studying education at Columbia, thanks to the scholarship Alex had arranged for her. Lucia, now 14, also at Hudson Prep, dreaming of becoming a doctor. Alex, Sarah, and Gabriel, who had become the family he never knew he needed. "Always," Javier nodded. "Always." And in that moment, he realized he had everything he had ever dreamed of. Not the medals, not the stake in the company, not the app downloaded by millions, but something much simpler and infinitely more valuable. Belonging, a home where he was loved, a table where he was expected, a family that had chosen him as much as he had chosen them. And that, Javier realized, was worth more than any World Olympiad. It was worth everything. The auditorium at Lincoln Center was filled to capacity. Journalists from the major U.S. media outlets, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, ABC, CNN, digital influencers, educators, entrepreneurs, politicians, all there for the official launch of version 2.0 of Math for All, which now also included language arts and science. Javier, just turned 18, was backstage, adjusting the jacket Sarah had insisted he wear. Alex was beside him, reviewing the printed speech. "Nervous?" Alex asked. "Terrified," Javier admitted. "I've never spoken to so many important people." "Then imagine you're just talking to me, just to Sarah, just to Gabriel. Speak from the heart, and the rest will follow." The host called Javier to the stage. The boy, no, he wasn't a boy anymore, he was a young man, walked confidently to the podium as the audience erupted in applause. "Good afternoon," Javier began, his voice clear. "My name is Javier Garcia. I'm 18 years old. I was born and raised in the Bronx, New York. My mother is a cleaner. I never knew my father. And 4 years ago I was on a plane, traveling alone to Los Angeles to compete in a math Olympiad, not knowing if I'd have money to eat during the trip." The audience fell completely silent. "Today, I'm a partner in a tech company, a world math champion, the creator of an app used by more than 12 million kids. But I didn't start out that way. I started out like all kids from humble families, invisible to the system, a statistic, just another neighborhood kid from whom no one expected anything good to come." He paused, letting the words sink in. "But I made it. Do you know why? Not because I'm a genius, not because I'm special, but because I was lucky. Lucky to be on a plane when a baby cried. Lucky that a businessman decided to give me a chance. Lucky to have a mother who worked herself to the bone to keep me in school. Lucky to have a sister who forced me to be responsible when I was 12. Javier looked to the back of the auditorium where his family was. Ana crying silently. Lucia, proud. Alex, Sarah, and Gabriel all smiling. And I realized something. I realized that luck shouldn't be a requirement. A kid from the neighborhood shouldn't need luck to have a future. Education is not a lottery. It's a right. The audience began to applaud, but Javier raised his hand, asking for silence. That's why I created Math for All. Not to be a hero, not to win an award, but because I remember perfectly staying until 8 at night in the library, desperate to understand logarithms and having no one to explain it to me. I remember walking home, saving the $2 for the bus and using that money to buy bread for my sister's breakfast. Now there were tears openly streaming down the faces in the audience. I remember feeling stupid, inadequate, like I wasn't good enough. And I remember thinking, if I make it out of here, if I succeed, I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back and I'm going to help. Javier took a deep breath. So that's what Math for All is. My way of coming back, of ensuring that no child needs to have the luck I had, that everyone has access to what I had to beg for, knowledge, opportunity, a chance. He looked directly at the cameras. And I'm just getting started, because this isn't about me. It was never about me. It's about the millions of kids living in working-class neighborhoods across America, those who study in under-resourced public schools, those who will never have a private tutor, a prep program, good materials. Those are the invisible geniuses, the Michael Jordans of mathematics who will never play because no one gave them a ball. His voice rose, passionate now. But now they have a ball, they have a court, they have a coach, they have a chance. And I'm going to dedicate every day of my life to making sure that chance grows, to making sure the next generation of scientists, engineers, doctors, teachers also comes from the neighborhoods, also comes from the periphery, also comes from where it's always come from raw talent, just waiting for someone to believe in it. Javier looked at Alex. Because someone believed in me, and that changed my life. Now, I'm going to believe in millions. Hand together, we're going to change America. The audience exploded, not in polite applause, but in a standing ovation, shouts, tears, journalists abandoning their professional posture to applaud with all their might. Javier came down from the stage and went straight to hug his mother. Ana held him like he was a little boy again, whispering, "My son, my son, my son," like a mantra. Lucia threw herself into his arms. "You're the man, Javi, like seriously the man." And then Alex. They hugged, and Alex whispered in his ear, "Your biological father missed out on the most valuable thing he could have ever had, but I gained it, and I'm grateful every day for that damn flight to LA." "Me too," Javier said. "Me too." Gabriel, now older, tugged on his pants. "Brother Javi, are you going to be president when you grow up?" Javier laughed, picking the boy up. "No, little man, not president, but I'm going to be someone who changes things, and you're going to help me when you're older, okay?" "Okay." That night, Javier's speech went viral. 20 million views on YouTube in 24 hours, a worldwide trending topic on Twitter, an article in the New York Times, an invitation to give a TED Talk. But Javier didn't care about any of that. Because when he went home to his real home in the Bronx, where he still visited every weekend, and saw the neighborhood kids running after him, shouting, "It's Javi, the Math Javi," he realized that's what mattered. The kids, their eyes shining with possibilities that didn't exist before. The teachers from the local public school, thanking him because they now had tools to teach better. The parents, hopeful that their children would have a different future. "Hey, Javi," a boy of about 9 shouted, running toward him. "My teacher says I've gotten way better at math because of your app. I didn't get anything, and now I get everything." Javier knelt down to the boy's level. "What's your name?" "Mateo." "Mateo, do you know what that means? It means you've always been smart. You just needed someone to explain it to you properly. And now you've discovered that you can. Don't ever forget that, okay? You can achieve anything you set your mind to." The boy's eyes filled with tears. "Really, really, you can trust me. I know what I'm talking about." And as he walked the streets of the Bronx that night, Javier realized he had finally come full circle, from the boy who received help to the man who offered it, from invisibility to influence, from desperation to hope. It wasn't about him. It had never been about him. It was about planting seeds of possibility in fertile ground that no one bothered to cultivate. And those seeds were sprouting all over America, millions of them. When he arrived at his mother's house, Anna was waiting for him at the door with a hot chocolate just like she always did when he visited. "I'm proud of you, son," she said, stroking his face. "But not for the money, not for the fame. I'm proud because you haven't changed. You're still my Javier, the boy who helps a crying baby without asking for anything in return, the brother who raised Lucia with so much love, the son who has never forgotten where he comes from." "I'll never forget, Mom," Javier promised. "Never." And it was true, because the Bronx wasn't just where he was born, it was who he was. Every narrow street, every apartment block, every kid running barefoot, all of it was tattooed on his soul, and he would carry it with him for the rest of his life, not as a burden, but as a reminder that there were always more kids waiting, more hidden talents, more Javiers needing just one chance, and he would provide that chance, again and again, as many times as it took. 6 months after the speech at Lincoln Center, Javier was sitting in Alex's office, looking at 3 envelopes on the desk. Each represented a different path, a choice that would define the rest of his life. "Have you opened them?" Alex asked. "Not yet. I was waiting for you." Alex sat down, with Sarah beside him. Gabriel, now 4, was playing with Legos in a corner of the room, building what he insisted was a rocket for brother Javi to travel to the stars. Javier picked up the first envelope, the MIT logo, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the dream university of any tech geek. He tore it open slowly, read it, closed his eyes. "Well?" Sarah couldn't contain herself. "Accepted. Full scholarship, including room and board." "Javi!" Sarah shouted, jumping up and hugging him. "That's incredible." But Alex noticed the expression on the boy's face. "There's more, isn't there?" Javier picked up the second envelope, the University of Cambridge logo. England, centuries of tradition. Isaac Newton had studied there. He opened it, read it, swallowed. Also accepted. Also a full scholarship, plus a monthly stipend of £2,000 for personal expenses. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered. "Javi, you've conquered the world." The third envelope had the crest of Columbia University, New York City, home, America. Javier opened it with trembling hands, read it, and when he finished, he dropped the paper on the desk. Columbia, too. A research initiation scholarship, an invitation to join the applied mathematics lab that develops research with Google and IBM. The 3 envelopes lay on the desk now. 3 possible futures, 3 different versions of Javier Garcia. "What do you want to do?" Alex asked in a low voice. Javier was silent for a long moment. He stood up, walked to the window, and looked at New York stretching out infinitely below. "I've dreamed my whole life of studying abroad," he finally said, "of seeing the world, of learning from the best. MIT and Cambridge they're the pinnacle. It's what every geek dreams of. But," Alex knew the boy well enough to know there was a but I remember why I started all this, why I created the app, why I gave that speech." Javier turned around. "I wanted to change America, and you can't change America living in Boston or England. You can't understand the problems here from over there." "Javier," Sarah said kindly, "you don't have to carry America on your shoulders. You've already done so much. You deserve to pursue your personal dreams too." "I know, but..." He looked at Gabriel, building his Lego rocket. "What if my personal dream has changed? What if now what I want most isn't to have my name in international publications, but to see more kids from the neighborhood achieve what I achieved? What if the victory isn't me leaving, but me staying and paving the way for others to leave?" Alex stood up and placed his hands on Javier's shoulders. "Son, I'm going to tell you something I've learned in my 46 years. There is no right or wrong choice. There's the choice that lets you sleep peacefully at night. So answer me, which of these 3 options brings you peace?" Javier closed his eyes. He imagined himself at MIT, surrounded by geniuses, state-of-the-art labs, doing revolutionary research. He imagined himself at Cambridge, walking the same halls as Newton and Hawking. And he imagined himself at Columbia, very close to the Bronx, able to go back every weekend to see the real impact of what he created. He opened his eyes. "Columbia," he said firmly. "I'm staying at Columbia." Sarah let out a sigh. "Are you sure? Because MIT and Cambridge won't wait. That opportunity won't come back." "I know, but other opportunities will arise. And when they do, I'll be ready. I'll be more mature, more prepared, and I'll have made a real difference here before I go." Javier picked up the 3 envelopes. "Besides, who says you can't do world-class research by staying in America? I'm going to prove you can. I'm going to prove you don't have to leave to be relevant." Alex smiled, his eyes shining with pride. "Then it's settled. Colombia better get ready, because it's about to get hit by a hurricane. That night, Javier called Anna and told her his decision. He expected her to be sad about him turning down MIT and Cambridge, but his mother just laughed. "Son, I've known you since you were born. I know your heart was never going to let you leave while you still have so much to do here. You're an American through and through, and America needs people like you, people who have the chance to leave but choose to stay and fix things. It's not fixing, Mom, it's building. Then build, son. Build everything you dream of. I'll be here supporting you." And Javier realized he had made the right choice because peace didn't come from prestige or international recognition. It came from the alignment between what you say and what you do, between your values and your choices. He had preached that American education could be better, that talent from the periphery deserved a chance, that you didn't have to leave the country to make a difference. Now, he was going to prove it, with his own life. And if he failed, well, at least he would have tried. But something told him he wasn't going to fail because he wasn't alone. He never had been. Javier's first day at Columbia was different from his first day at Hudson Prep. He wasn't nervous. He didn't feel out of place. He arrived at the Department of Mathematics with his head held high, prepared. Professor Sergio Almeida, coordinator of the Applied Mathematics Lab, received him in his office. A man in his 60s, with completely white hair, thick-rimmed glasses, the walls covered with diplomas and certificates from international conferences. "Javier Garcia," the professor said, studying the young man before him. "I've read your papers on algorithm optimization. Impressive, truly impressive, especially considering you wrote them when you were 16, 17. Thank you, Professor. And now you've turned down MIT and Cambridge to stay here. Why?" Javier didn't hesitate. "Because America has problems that only those who live here can truly understand. And I want to solve those problems. I don't just want to publish a paper in a foreign journal. I want real impact in the lives of real people." Professor Almeida smiled. "Do you know how many brilliant students I've seen go abroad in my 30 years at Columbia? Hundreds. And do you know how many have come back? A dozen. Are you aware of what it means for a country to constantly lose its best minds? Brain drain. I learned about it in economics class." "Exactly. So you, Javier Garcia, by choosing to stay, are already making a difference. Because talent that stays inspires other talent to stay too. It creates an ecosystem. It creates a movement." The professor leaned forward. "And I'm going to use you mercilessly. I'm going to put you on the toughest projects we have. I'm going to demand excellence. I'm going to make you publish in international conferences, even though you're here. Ready?" "I was born ready, Professor." And he was. Boy, was he ever. Javier immersed himself in his studies with an intensity that scared even his classmates. He woke up at 5 in the morning, studied until 11 at night. On weekends, he divided his time between academic research and updating Math for All, which now had 18 million active users. But it wasn't just studying. Javier also started a parallel project, Neighborhood Scientists. The idea was simple: identify talented kids in low-income communities in New York, offer them individualized tutoring, and prepare them for science Olympiads and scholarships to good schools. "It's replicating what happened to me," he explained to Alex in one of their weekly conversations at the office. "But at scale, I want to find 100 Javiers a year, 1,000, and give each one the same chance you gave me." "And how do you plan to fund it?" Javier smiled. "With the dividends from Technovision, my 10% of the company brings in over $1 million a year now. I don't need all that to live, so I'm going to use it to create opportunities." Alex shook his head, amazed. "You're 19 and you already think like a philanthropist." "It's not philanthropy, it's an investment. Every kid I help today will help 10 others tomorrow. It's an exponential multiplication, basic math." And it worked. The first year, the project identified and began tutoring 46 kids from the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn. The second year, 120. The third, 300. Of those 300 kids, 61 medals in science Olympiads. 28 got full scholarships to private schools. 12 were accepted into research initiation programs at Columbia, NYU, and CUNY. The numbers were impressive, but what really mattered were the stories. Like Deborah, 12 from Queens, who won gold in the Astronomy Olympiad and now dreamed of being an astrophysicist. Like Raphael, 15 from Brooklyn, who developed an app to teach sign language using augmented reality. Like Juliana, 13 from the Bronx, who created a water filtration system using recycled materials and won a National Sustainability Award. Each child was a seed, and Javier was the gardener, making sure they all had sun, water, and room to grow. "You're creating a movement," Professor Almeida said one afternoon at Columbia, after Javier presented his research on neural networks applied to logistics optimization. "A movement that will outlive you, that will last for generations." "That's the plan," Javier nodded, "because I'm not going to be here forever, but the structure I create, the paths I open, will continue, and other people will improve on what I started." That night, returning home on the bus, he insisted on using public transport despite being able to afford an Uber every day. Javier looked out the window and saw New York pass by, huge and chaotic as always, and he realized he was exactly where he needed to be, doing exactly what he was born to do, not at MIT, not at Cambridge, but here, in the land that had shaped him, among the people who understood him, building bridges that others would cross after him, and that he knew was worth more than any foreign degree. It was worth a lifetime of meaning. 3 years later, the Metropolitan Opera House was buzzing, a charity gala for the Neighborhood Scientists Project, which now served over 1,000 children in 12 states. Javier, at 22, had just received the Social Entrepreneur of the Year award for the second time in a row. But it wasn't the award that mattered. It was who was in the audience. Anna, elegant in a dress Sarah had helped her pick out, radiant. Lucia, now 18, about to start medical school. Alex, Sarah, and Gabriel, who at 7 already said he wanted to be a scientist like brother Javi. And more than 200 kids from the project, all wearing custom t-shirts. Neighborhood Scientists, class of 2028. The master of ceremonies called Javier to the stage for a final speech. He went up, the heavy trophy in his hands, and looked out at that sea of hopeful faces. "When I was 14, he began, "I was on a plane, alone, scared, not knowing if I could compete against the best students in America, and a baby started to cry." Laughter from the audience. "That cry changed my life because it gave me the opportunity to do what I do best, help. And by helping, I met a man who showed me that my origin didn't define my destiny. That talent without opportunity is a waste, and that every successful person has a responsibility to help others climb up." Javier looked directly at Alex. "Alexander Williams gave me everything, education, structure, family, love. But the greatest thing he gave me was something intangible. He made me believe I deserved it. And that belief changed everything." Tears were streaming down Alex's face. Sarah squeezed his hand tightly. "Today I look at you," Javier pointed to the children in the t-shirts, "and I see 1,000 versions of who I was, 1,000 talents just waiting for someone to believe in them. And I believe in every single one of you, without exception." A little girl in the front row shyly raised her hand. "You can speak," Javier said, smiling. "Do you think I can be a scientist even if I'm poor?" Javier's heart ached. "What's your name?" "Yasmin. I'm 9. I live in the South Bronx." Javier stepped down from the stage and knelt in front of the girl. "Yasmin, do you know what I saw in the Columbia lab last week? I saw a girl from the neighborhood testing an algorithm that can help detect cancer earlier. Do you know who that girl is?" Yasmin shook her head. "Her name is Deborah. She started in our project 4 years ago. She was 12, from Queens, and nobody bet a dime on her. Today she has a paper published in an international scientific journal. At 15, Yasmin's eyes widened. "So yes," Javier continued, "you can be a scientist, you can be an astronaut, you can be a doctor, you can be whatever you want, because what defines us is not where we're born. It's what we do with the opportunities that come our way. And I'm here to make sure those opportunities come your way." The girl threw herself into his arms, crying. And Javier hugged her, closing his eyes, remembering himself at 9, thinking he would never get out of the neighborhood, that he would never be anyone. When he returned to the stage, a surprise was waiting for him. The screen lit up, and a video began to play. It was a man in his 40s, simple in appearance, sitting in a chair against a white wall. "My name is Robert Garcia," the man in the video said, his voice thick with emotion. "And I'm Javier's father." Javier froze. The audience fell completely silent. "I abandoned my son when he was born. I abandoned my daughter too. I was a coward, a miserable excuse for a man. And I've spent 22 years trying to forget what I did. But you can't forget, you can't erase it." The man wiped his eyes. "And now I see my son on TV, in the newspapers, doing things I never dreamed were possible, and I feel proud, and I feel ashamed, because I did nothing to get him there. Quite the opposite. I only made it harder." Now the tears were flowing freely. "Javier, if you're watching this, I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve anything. But I wanted you to know that I was wrong. I was so wrong, and you've proven that I was wrong when I said you would never be anything. You're everything, son. Everything a father could dream of. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry you had to grow up without me. You deserved more. You deserved so much more." The video ended. Javier was shaking. Ana got up from the audience and ran to the stage, hugging her son tightly. "You don't have to forgive him," she whispered. "You don't owe him anything." "I know, Mom." Javier wiped his eyes. "I know." But when he looked at the audience, he saw all those children watching him, children who, many of them, also didn't have fathers, who had also been abandoned, who also carried that pain, and he knew what he had to do. He took the microphone. His voice was shaky but firm. "My father abandoned me, it's true, and it hurt. It still hurts. But I've learned something over all these years. I've learned that family isn't just blood. It's a choice. It's who stays, who believes, who lifts you up when you want to give up." He looked at Alex. "I had a father, Alexander Williams. He chose me, on a plane, in a moment of desperation, and he never gave up on me, never doubted. He was always there. That's my father, and I'm grateful every day for being chosen by him." Alex was crying openly now. "And as for the man who fathered me, I forgive him, not because he deserves it, but because I deserve it. I deserve to live without carrying anger, without carrying resentment. I deserve peace." The audience erupted in emotional applause. Javier came down from the stage for the last time that night, and Alex was waiting for him. They hugged, tightly, for a long time. The kind of hug that says everything without needing words. "I love you, Dad," Javier whispered. "And I love you, son," Alex replied. "More than you can ever imagine." Gabriel squeezed between them. "Hey, I want a hug from Brother Javi too." They laughed, making room for him. And there the three of them stood, father, middle son, and eldest son. A real family, a chosen family. Later, at the celebration party, Javier stood on the theater's balcony, looking at New York lit up at night. Lucia joined him. "What are you thinking about, Javi? About how strange life is, crazy, unexpected." "How so?" "Well, if that baby hadn't cried on that plane, none of this would have happened. I wouldn't have met Alex. I wouldn't have been able to study. I wouldn't have created the app. I wouldn't be here today helping 1,000 kids." Lucia smiled. "It's the butterfly effect. You learned about it in physics class." "I did. But I never thought my whole life would literally be the result of a baby's cry." They laughed, and Lucia rested her head on her brother's shoulder. "You know you changed my life too, right?" "How?" "Because you taught me that you can dream big, that it doesn't matter where we were born, that with effort, opportunities, and good people around, anything is possible." She looked at him. "You're my hero, Javi, and you'll be the hero of those 1,000 kids too. Forever." Javier hugged his sister, emotional, and he thought about all the paths that had led him here, all the coincidences, all the choices, all the people who had crossed his path at just the right moment, and he realized something fundamental. He hadn't made it here despite his origins. He had made it because of them. Every difficulty had strengthened him. Every obstacle had prepared him. Every no had motivated him to prove otherwise. The Bronx wasn't a curse. It was his foundation, his base, the rock on which he had built everything. And now he would carry the Bronx with him in every project, in every sponsored child, in every opportunity created, because what's the point of reaching the top if you don't extend a hand to help others climb up with you? Gabriel came running. "Brother Javi, come see. There are a bunch of kids who want to take a picture with you." Javier smiled and let his little brother drag him back to the party. And as he posed for photos with dozens of bright-eyed children, each of them seeing in him living proof that their dreams were possible, Javier Garcia fully understood his purpose. It wasn't to be famous. It wasn't to be rich. It wasn't to win awards. It was to be a bridge. To be the bridge he himself had needed 4 years ago, the bridge between impossibility and realization, between desperation and hope, between "I can't" and "I did it." And that bridge wouldn't end with him. It would continue, through the 1,000 kids he was helping today. Who would help 10,000 others tomorrow? Who would transform millions after that? A movement that began with the cry of a baby on a plane, and that would have no end. Because kindness begets kindness, opportunity begets opportunity, and hope, true hope, is immortal. Javier took one last look at New York from the window of the Opera House, the city that had shaped him, that had challenged him, that now saw him as a hero. and he whispered a promise to the night. I will never forget, I will never stop, and I will never, ever stop believing that every child deserves the same chance I had. It was a simple promise, but it was one he would keep until the last day of his life, and beyond, because legacies don't die when the person dies. Legacies live on in every life you touch, in every child you inspire, in every impossible you make possible. And Javier Garcia, the kid from the Bronx who soothed a crying baby and gained a family, was just beginning to build his, one life at a time, one dream at a time, one child at a time, until there were no more wasted talents, until every kid from the neighborhood had a chance, until all of America understood that its greatest wealth wasn't in tourism, in industry, or in technology. It was in the neighborhoods, in the peripheries, in the forgotten places, where millions of Javiers were just waiting for someone to believe in them. And he believed. Boy, did he believe.